Hi there, it's Fran Davidson again from Psychic and Energy Work. This is the second video where I'm talking about the year 2020 and its numerological chart given recent events, i.e. COVID-19 and all that's generating. In no way is this video or any of the others attempts for me to explain COVID-19 solely in spiritual, energetic or numerological terms. Obviously there are a whole lot of physical reasons why this is happening and a whole lot of physical things or contexts or requirements that we need to work with as these events unfold. That said, numerology and therefore spiritual development are often things that go hand in hand with what's happening in our physical reality. Some of that can be explained by numbers, obviously by other things as well, for example astrology, let alone any other model that you might care to think of. So if I cast back to the first video, I talked about the year 2020, as in the number 2020. In numerology, there are three main numbers: the birth number, the MO, and the reality number. The birth number depicts what we're here to step into, learn about, embrace, channel, and therefore quite possibly disseminate more of as a spiritual vibe as we do that. The second number is the MO, which tells us how we might achieve that dynamic, how life is going to help us through what sort of channeling and filters is life going to propel us towards more of the birth number states. Then lastly, the reality number, which is the spiritual endpoint, states, results that manifest as a result of working with the first two dynamics well. In the first video, I talked again about 2020 and how that's a dance between people and nothing. Between society or mingling, merging as humans versus space. 0 is such a powerful number, and it doesn't matter whether it presents on its own, which of course is very rare. Usually it's in amongst other vibrations forming part of another number in itself, for example 10, 102, those sorts of things. So 0 is interesting though, because again it represents loss, it represents lack, it represents stillness and silence, and all of those things can be incredibly pleasurable, but they can also be incredibly jarring when that 0 first starts to emerge. If we put it into the context of a year being 12 months, 365 days, a year, often it's the first half of the year where we are encountering and becoming familiar with the issues and the dynamics we're here to grow through. It's often around the midway point of a phase that the person starts to get the hang of it and starts then to sail down the other side of the mountain, perhaps with a bit more of a smile on his or her face. Yeah? So 0 is interesting because as a master number, 2020 is here to deliver us the sense of loss or losing, uncertainty, unfamiliarity, inconstancy, unpredictability, lack. Yeah? All of these things can be interpreted through the 0. What's also interesting is that the MO this year is a 79-7. Now 7 is a vibration that talks about the head, the mind, and therefore all the head can do, all the mind can imagine on a good day and perhaps on a jarring day. If we combine those two dynamics, 0 and 7, within a chart in the way that they are this year, that is in amongst so many master numbers, presenting in the form of so many master numbers, 0 can rattle in a way that inflames head stuff, that inflames the mind's tendency to move into pessimism, fear, anxiety, doubt, any of those things, all of which of course are normal, healthy human responses to anything as sizable as COVID-19. If we stop to think for a moment, 0 at any time as an unfolding can be very, very unnerving, especially for adults who have been here a couple of rounds of 9. In numerology, the cycle is 9 years long. So For anybody who's lived a couple or more 9-year cycles, they're sort of used to how life works for them. 0 can come in a way that strips away a certain level of that knownness, if that's a word, yeah? That constancy. 0 can introduce the sense that, hang on, what was stable, what I knew before is no longer like this. And of course that's exactly what we're seeing on many levels right now from all sorts of angles. 0, though, is the chance to start again. 0 on that level is not just rebirth, which is often more 1. 0 is also the birth of the concepts, the birth of the realizations of what exactly self could do with the reality it finds itself in right now. So, 0 is amazing. 0 is powerful because at the end of the day, 0 also represents the universe, source, God, the divine, whatever your words are for, whatever you believe in. 0 can be seen at that level as the divine's call for us to come back to center again, back to essence, back to spiritual being, not for the first time, rarely for the first time, but to the next degree. And often the way that we do that best is by having stillness come in, is by having a challenge to what is the norm, especially on a perceptual level, but also on a physical. So 0 is, in a sense, the invitation to understand that out of nothing, absolutely nothing, everything emerges. Out of nothing, everything is conceived. The black hole that we often fear, especially in big times, is simply a nothing into which something has yet to come. The more we know this as a meditation, the more we know it as an affirmation, using our out-breath through mouth and releasing all stress at the same time, the more we can find life flowing again or shifting, even if only on the intuitive level, as a piece of guidance or a gut feel that says, you know what, but in spite of all this, you're going to be okay. 0 is the fact that, the physical might look like loss and lack, losing, uncertainty. But on a spiritual level, on an energetic level, which of course is where everything starts, you could argue, nothing is never happening. 0, therefore, combines with 7, the MO, 79-7, and you'll notice there are 2 7s in that and a 9, and 9 is close it off, deal with the issue, deal with the concept, deal with whatever head stuff is making you spin right now. 7 is head stuff, 7 is mind, and therefore whatever mind can entertain but also is entertaining. None of this is an argument to, shall we say, ignore whatever head stuff you are currently experiencing at this time. But 7 can see us unable to turn our heads off. 7 is not just mind stuff, 7 is knowledge. Knowledge is a beautiful thing, of course, but knowledge can also undo us if all we adhere to is opinion, if all we can hear is pessimism, if all we can channel is what humans know so far. That, of course, is an incredible pool of intelligence, beauty, productivity, constructive thinking, amongst other things, But we are only as far as we've come, which means that 7, the flip side to 7, is the invitation to meditate. More importantly, it's the invitation to connect to intuitive wisdom, to divine wisdom, to universal wisdom. And we do that best when we exercise, when we choose to process with breath out through mouth, and when we use downtime and space, 0, stillness, to tap into a level of intelligence that we're not always accessing simply because we're human, simply because life's life, simply because we're busy. So 2020 through the 79-7 vibration, yeah, lack, loss, inconstancy, insecurity, as states that are inflamed or nudged along or nudged towards us further through the aspect of knowing, listening to opinion, perhaps listening to media, yeah, not because that's bad, a little too much at times, yeah, through any sense of the head getting wound up, through the self getting wound up, or perhaps again pessimistic. Through that, we'll step into the need to shift gear from excessive mind into spiritual connection. And the more we move into our spiritual connection, which is both 7 and 8, and frankly any other number when it's done properly, the more we start to see something good emerging out of the nothing that is presenting as the physical illusion that it is, albeit very real. So, 7 is also get wise. We only get wise when we give ourselves the space, 0, to observe afresh. When we sit back from acting and doing and needing to be busy all the time, which is also where 2020 is doing us a favour right now. Social distancing and isolation is helping us all quieten. It's helping us all break up all the patterns of thought and feeling we're usually amongst. If you think about it, when we're always mingling, especially if we're, going to the same places, for example, work, yes, social groups, etc. Not because any of them need to be bad. But whenever we hang out as a habit, wherever we hang out as a habit, thoughts and feelings will start to accumulate. So you might recall even from time to time, you'll be at work and you start sort of grumbling away to yourself about that person or this person or why can't I, and all of those dynamics, they're thoughts and feelings. And those thoughts and feelings can hang about spaces until they're cleared. The trouble is that very rarely are workspaces energetically cleared, especially big ones. So, on one level, 2020 right now is introducing space doubly over, and I don't just mean twice, I mean exponentially over. It is using the concept of space, the dynamic of space, to help the airwaves clear. As the airwaves around us clear, our heads clear, and vice versa. So in a very backward way, even now, when so much is still unknown, when lockdowns are only now just starting in one sense, even here, 2020 is doing everyone a huge favour, because through space we're coming back to base. We're coming back to the starting point of creating a tomorrow, rather than it being a perpetuation of what was happening before, because I just kept stepping into the same dynamics that I was in yesterday, revisiting the same places, living the same experience day after day. Whereas now, of course, it's all been thrown up in the air for a moment, for change. Because if you remember, 4 is foundation, the base, the model, the practice, the approach. 4 can be a time that levels, wipes out our habits, breaks up our approaches, so as to create even better ones. In a very extreme sense, 4 is a tsunami, wipes the place clear, so as to have it rebuilt. On a spiritual and energetic level, so much of that, irrespective of who we are, I'd argue, and what our beliefs are, so much of what we end up pumping out as energetic beings through thoughts, feelings, and deed is perceptual. And so these numbers, 0, 4, and 7, and 9, they're all helping us deal with stuff, get stuff sorted, use space and distancing, but also unknown, in a way that we're being invited, maybe cornered, maybe forced, impelled, to reconnect with spiritual vibes, to come back to our spiritual base, so as to build afresh from there, whether that's a repeat of what we were doing, as in a replica, in a couple of months' time or a couple of weeks or whenever that time frame is that we all start getting going again, or whether it's a whole new way of doing things. No number introduces challenge, only to cripple. No dynamic ever comes to only floor or wipe out. That's not making light of any pain or suffering that occurs in those experiences at all. And yet life always rolls. Life is always a sine wave, up, down, in, out, towards and away. And through that process, especially when we understand that 0 well, and also the 7 well, because 7 is the invitation to get out of your head. 7 is the invitation to know what you know, to have your opinion, to feel your feelings, to express your fear. 7 is the dare to not harbour or repress those dynamics in a way that you don't let them out of your system, because that's when things get stuck. So, on that note, I'm going to close off. There's much more to say, and I may follow with some more videos. For now, if you need a hand with anything, give me a call. Go through to the website www.psychicandenergywork.com.au. But, in concluding, 0, everything comes out of nothing. So, do what you got to do. Plant the seeds you've got to plant. But then let the soil do the work. Let the nothing turn into something, and don't fret if things don't seem to be moving just now. They always are. All the very best to you. Take good care. Hopefully speak to you soon.